Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So in previous video, we created a query database with AI function, and with the help of this function, we converted our generic prompt messages to raw SQL queries, and we use those SQL queries to query the data from our Postgres database, and we use Gradio UI to show the data inside a chatbot. But in this function, there are some limitations. Like this function has only one responsibility, that is to convert user question to raw SQL queries that matches our database schema. But if you are asking any kind of question like what is the capital of India, it will try to generate the SQL queries with the matching database, because that information is not available inside our database schema, so it will not generate any kind of response. So in this video, we will be creating a multi-purpose chatbot where we can ask generic question like what is the capital of India, and also we will be able to ask some question related to our student database. So before starting this video, we need to understand two concepts, that is LLM agent and tools. So what is the agent? So an agent is a AI system that can decide what to do. It can call a tool if required and iterates until the task is completed. It has decision making capabilities, like if you ask a question to the agent, it can decide by itself whether to call a tool or not to fulfill the user message. It has also reasoning ability. It can call multiple tools if required, and it can also talk to other agents like him. Next, what is tool? Tool is a utility function we can call. It does one defined job when it's called. It does not have any decision making capabilities like agent, and it is controlled by the model or agent, and it has only single responsibility like fetch API, query a database, update a database table like this. And it has a fixed interface which is input and output. So like a utility function, we provide some input and we are expecting some output. So that is the main characteristic of an agent and tool. For this video, we will be using the same libraries like we have used in previous video. So we'll be using Scicog2 binary to connect with Postgres database, SQL Alchemy, Pandas for data visualization, and also python.env to load the environmental files, and OpenAI SDK. Then we'll be importing some libraries in here. Next, we'll be creating our AI client. So we are using Grok API, and the model we are using is Grok 4.1 fast reasoning model. In here, we are creating the API client. So next we will be creating an engine to connect to our Postgres database, and we will be using the same database that we have used in our previous tutorial, and we will be using the same demo data, the student database. So next we will be creating a simple tool named getinfo Subodhip tool, and we will see how to integrate this tool to our OpenAI SDK, and we will be seeing how to defining a tool. So next, let's define this tool. So tool is nothing but just a Python function, and we can write our custom logic inside there. So we'll be creating a function getinfo Subodhip tool, and we are logging if the tool is called. And what we are doing is we are just reading a file subodhip.md and return its context. So this file is present in the root directory in the context folder, and this is the file. So in here I put all of my information so that whenever I am asking the agent about me, so it will fetch this file and use this context to answer my question. So next we need to define the context about this tool so that our LLM can understand this function, what is the name of this function and when to call it. So inside here we need to define it in this format. Let's say this is type function. So this is a function, and inside function we are saying that the function name is getinfo Subodhip tool. So this is the tool, and this is the description: get profile and background information about Subodhip, including skills, projects and experience. And in the parameter, this will be a object, and in the properties, this is an empty object because we are not passing any kind of parameter. So if you are passing any kind of parameter, so we need to define it in here, and there is no required parameter. So this is the standard format of defining a tool context. So let's run it. So next we will be creating our main agent, which will trigger this tool and get the information about this user. So agent is also a Python function where we are passing our prompt message as a parameter. So we are doing some validation checking. So next we are also defining the message, that is the system message and the user message. and then we are calling our chat API. So in here there is a extra parameter called tools. So inside here we are passing our tool context, not the tool function but the tool context. Okay. So next we are getting the first message, and we will be printing this message to understand what it is returning, and then at finally we are returning the content. So let's test this. We'll be asking what is the capital of India. So as you can see, it is returning the data. So inside this message, which is a chat completion message, and inside here we have this content, and we are returning this content in here. So next we'll be asking information about me, and let's see if agent is able to reply with correct answer. So as you can see, there is no response because content is blank. And if we go to the end, you can see there is a tool calls, and inside array we have a chat completion message function tool call. So every tool will have a caller ID, and this is the function. So inside function there is no argument, and the function name is get info Shubhadeep Ghodoi tool, and this is the type of function. So OpenAI SDK just return the tool name in here, the function name only. So it does not execute that function automatically. So we need to handle that manually in our agent. So let's do that. So before returning the final message, we need to check if there is any tool call. So first we will be calling those tools, and then finally whenever there will be no tool call, we will be returning the final message. So in here we are checking if there is no tool call, we will be returning the final message. Otherwise we will append the return message to our main message context, that is this. So we will be calling all the tools one by one. First we are extracting the arguments if there is any, and then we are checking the function name and calling the function manually. After getting the result, we are appending this object to our main message context. So in here it will be role tool. Every tool will be having a caller ID, and content will be the returning result. And we need to do this until there is a tool call. So we need to write it inside a loop. So while true, we will define this. So let's define it. Because whenever there will be a tool call, we will be updating our message context. Then again we need to call our LLM to get the final response, and whenever there is a final response, it will break the loop and return the final content. So for better understanding, we will be console logging this message object also. So let's run this function, and let's run this block again. So as you can see, first we are doing the API call with messages role system. This is the content, your helpful assistant, role user, and this is the question. So after getting the response, we are getting the response. In the response there is a tool call happening. So in the tool call, this is the function and there is no argument. Then we are calling the tool get information Shubhadeep Ghodoi tool, which returning the contents from this file, and again we are calling the API with this context also. So you can see here we have this chat completion message where we are calling this tool, and again there is a object role tool. This is the tool call ID and this is the content, and after this is the final response where we are getting this content and we are showing this content in here. So now you can see how the workflow is working. So first we are calling the LLM, then it decide to call a tool, and then we are passing the result as a context, and again we are calling the LLM to generate the final response. So next we will be converting our old query database with AI function into a proper tool, and also we will be integrating to our agent. So let's create a query student DB tool function, and we will be passing our question as a parameter. So inside here we are logging if the tool is called or not. Then we are doing the same thing, creating our schema and custom instruction and generating the user prompt. Then we are calling our LLM and extracting the SQL query. So in here we are only allowing select queries. We are forwarding every other queries like delete, update, insert, drop, etc. And in here we are also disabling multiple SQL query statement. After every validation is checked, we are connecting to our database and execute this SQL query. After getting all the rows, we are converting those to a Panda data frame, and in response we are also returning raw SQL query that we have used and also the result as a markdown format. So next we are defining the context for this tool. So type is function. So function name is query student DB tool, and in here we are describing when to call this tool. Then we have this parameter which is an object. So inside object we are saying first parameter is question, which is a string, and this is a natural language question to query the student database, and this question parameter is a required parameter. Then we need to integrate this tool to our OpenAI SDK. So now we need to integrate this tool in here whenever we are calling this API. Next, whenever we are getting a tool call, we need to also define it in here. So we are also defining it in here, and we are passing the arguments that will be returning by the LLM. So let's rerun this block. So get subject marks of John Doe. So let's test this tool. So first we are calling the API. So in here we have a tool call. So in here we have a tool calls. In the tool call, this is the function name, query student DB tool, and in the arguments we have this question, and this is the value get subject marks of John Doe, and this is a type function. Then we are calling this function query student DB tool. This is the parameter and its value. So after getting the result, we are again calling the chat API with the result context and getting the final response. So this is the content. Here is the subject marks of John Doe. But there is one issue. If you remember, we are also returning our SQL queries, but those SQL queries is not visible to our final output. So to render raw SQL queries also, we need to define it inside our agent context. So right now the context is your helpful assistant. Because SQL queries are backend code snippets, that's why it will not render by default. So to render raw SQL queries, we need to tell our agent manually. So we have defined it that whenever you are querying a database, we need to add raw SQL queries also. So let's rerun this block and again run this block. So we have a tool called, this is the question, and this is the final response. So in the final response, now you can see it included that raw SQL that is used to query the database, and here is the total marks. So that's how OpenAI SDK call tools, and with the help of the response, it is generating the final result. So like reading data from database, we can also create a tool to update a table in the database. So let's create a tool to update John Doe's marks in a subject. So we'll be creating a tool named update student mark tool. So we have created a function update student mark tool. We are passing parameter like first name, last name, subject and marks, and this is the log whenever the tool is called. And first we will be finding the student and finding the subject. After finding both student and subject, we will be updating our test mark for that student for that subject. So in here we are connecting with the DB. First we are finding the student. If the student is not exist, then we are returning this error. Next we are finding the subject and also do some error handling, and finally we are updating the student marks for that subject. And in here, if there is no update happened, we will be sending this error message. Otherwise we are just returning the raw SQL which we are used to update the test mark, and this is the success message with the username, the subject name and the marks. And we have also created a context update student mark tool context, which is a function. This is the function name, and this is the description. Update the mark of the student for a specific subject in the school database. Look up the student by first and last name. Return an error if the student or subject is not found. So you can use ChatGPT to create this context for your tool. So in here as a parameter, we are saying first name, last name, subject and marks, and we are defining its type and what the parameter does. Okay, so like in here we are saying this is math or biology 5, so we need to define it perfectly, otherwise it will not work. So and the required parameter is first name, last name, subject and marks. So let's run this block and we will be adding this tool to our main agent. So inside here we need to add it, update student mark tool context, and in here also we need to execute the tool if the tool is called, and we will be passing the arguments. So let's rerun this block again. So let's update John Doe's math mark to 88. Before that we will be checking what is the current John Doe's marks. So this is the SQL query that we used and this is the subject marks. So in math John Doe's marks is 100. Next change the math subject marks to 88. So first it's call the LLM and the LLM responds with a tool call that is update student mark tool, and in here we are passing the parameter first name, we are passing the parameter John Doe, subject is math and marks is 88. So and finally it's updated that data into the database, and this is the final response. John Doe's marks in math 5 has successfully updated to 88, and this is the raw SQL query that we use to update the data. So let's check if the data is truly updated or not, and this is the result. So as you can see, John Doe's math 5 subject marks is 88. So we have successfully updated the data. So finally we can wrap up this video by creating a Gradio chatbot interface. So we'll be using the previous code. So let's copy our code in here. So we'll be using Gradio. We are closing all the old instances, and in here we will be calling our main function rather than this thing, and inside here we will be passing question because it's returning the answer as a markdown, so we don't need to do this thing. We can just remove this. Okay, so answer, and this is the answer, and let's run this thing, and in here we can just say GenAI chatbot find any student detail by writing prompt and update test mark. So let's launch this. So this is our Gradio chatbot. Let's open the URL. So now in here we can write any question in here, like what is the capital of India? So it is saying New Delhi is the capital of India. So now it's a multi-purpose agent. Next we will be asking question about me. Tell me about Shubhadeep Ghorui. So now it will be calling that get information Shubhadeep Ghorui tool to get the information about me. So it got the information about me, like this is the information about me, tech stack, notable projects, education certification, fun facts. Okay, so now we'll be asking some student database related question. Get top 3 highest mark student in subject math in class 5, submit. So now you can see this is the raw SQL query. So now you can see that is the raw SQL query that is used to fetch the data from the database, and this is the data. So let's update the John Doe math marks to a different value. So update John Doe's marks. So what will happen if we don't provide the math subject? Let's see which subject marks we need to update. It will ask you that which subject would you like to update for John Doe's marks to 99. This error message is coming because we have put that subject in the required array. So now if we put the subject in here and submit again, it will update that marks for John Doe. So let's see. So it updates the marks for John Doe. So as you can see, this is the SQL query that has been used to update the test mark table. So let's fetch information about John Doe. Fetch. So let's test this. So we got the answer, and as you can see here, the math subject updated with 99. So that's all for this video. So in this video we learned what are agents and tools, and how can we call multiple tools via agent, and we created a beautiful UI with the help of Gradio UI to create a multi-purpose chatbot. So in next video we will be building multiple agents, and those agents will be talking to each other, and we will be also calling some tools via those agents. So in a large agentic architecture where multiple agents are parallelly working and agents are talking to each other and calling multiple tools, it is very crucial to monitor and log every step. So for that, there are many open source AI frameworks is available. One of them is LangChain and LangGraph. So in next video, we will be seeing what are LangChain and LangGraphs and how to set up and monitor large scale AI workflows. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, like this, subscribe to this channel for more videos like this.